Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss any more shocking and captivating stories. Enjoy watching. His name was Callaway Reed. Most people just called him Cal, but his full name always sounded heavier, like something meant to carry responsibility. His father had chosen it deliberately, said it belonged to someone who didn't run from things. Funny how names worked out. Or didn't. Callaway was 38. Worked as a systems analyst for a mid-sized logistics company in Evanston, Illinois, and lived in a quiet brick townhouse with his wife, Marissa Reed. They'd been married 11 years. No kids. Not by design, just by delay that slowly hardened into acceptance. On paper, their life was clean and stable. 2 cars in the driveway, shared grocery list on the fridge, Sunday morning coffee on the porch when the weather allowed. But Callaway had learned something unsettling in the past year. Stability could exist alongside deception. It started small, almost invisible. Marissa had always been organized. Color-coded calendar, reminders set days in advance. So when she told him she'd started therapy, he believed her without hesitation. She said it casually one night while loading the dishwasher. "I found someone near downtown," she said. "Wednesday afternoons." He remembered nodding, saying something supportive, asking what kind of therapist. "General," she replied. "Stress, anxiety, you know." He did know, or thought he did. At first, therapy made sense. Marissa had seemed distant. Not cold, just preoccupied. Like her thoughts were always somewhere else, slightly out of reach. Therapy was the kind of responsible step Marissa would take. It fit the version of her he trusted. But trust, Callaway would learn, doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes. The first crack came 3 weeks later. She started dressing differently on Wednesdays. Not dramatically, no sudden heels or red lipstick, but with intention. Softer fabrics. Coats she rarely wore. Perfume she usually saved for dinners out. Callaway noticed, because he noticed patterns. That was his job. His mind was built to track deviations. "You look nice," he said once, leaning against the counter as she checked her phone. She smiled, quick and practiced. "It helps me feel confident. Talking about stuff, you know?" He nodded again. Still, something lodged itself in his chest. Not suspicion exactly, more like discomfort without a name. The second crack came with her phone. Marissa had never been secretive. Phones lay face up on tables, passcodes shared. But suddenly, hers never left her side. Bathroom, shower. Even the bedroom at night, screen down, tucked beneath her pillow. Once in bed, Callaway shifted and accidentally brushed against it. She flinched. It was subtle, but it was there. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just tired." Tired became her default explanation for everything. By the 6th Wednesday, Callaway had started marking her therapy sessions mentally. Not with dates. He didn't need those, but with feelings. A tightening in his stomach around noon. A restless energy that made focusing at work harder than usual. That Wednesday, she left early. "I might grab coffee afterward," she said, slipping on her coat. "Therapy can be draining." "Of course," he replied. The door closed behind her with a sound that echoed longer than it should have. Callaway stood in the kitchen long after she was gone, staring at the faint coffee ring she'd left on the counter. Something about that mark, careless, out of character, pushed him over an invisible line. He didn't grab his keys right away. He argued with himself first. "You're paranoid. You're projecting. This is what insecurity looks like." But another voice, quieter and colder, whispered back. "Or this is what being lied to feels like." He waited 10 minutes, then 15. Then he grabbed his jacket. He followed at a distance, feeling ridiculous and sick all at once. He told himself he'd turn back if she went where she said she was going. She didn't. Marissa drove past the medical complex she'd mentioned weeks earlier, past the coffee shops, past downtown traffic. Calloway's pulse thudded in his ears as he kept 2 cars behind her, careful not to close the gap. She turned onto Lakeshore Drive. Then she slowed. Then she signaled. And then she pulled into the parking lot of a boutique hotel, the kind with tall glass doors, discreet valet service, and no obvious reason for a licensed therapist to rent office space inside. Calloway parked across the street. He watched. Marissa stepped out of the car, adjusted her coat, and checked her reflection in the window. She didn't look nervous. She looked practiced, like she'd done this before. She walked inside without hesitation. The doors slid shut behind her. Calloway didn't move. The world seemed to narrow, compressing into that single glass entrance. His hands trembled against the steering wheel. Not with rage. Not yet. With disbelief. Maybe it's a shared office, he told himself desperately. Maybe it's a conference room. Maybe you're wrong. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then the valet brought another car, a black sedan. A man stepped out. Calloway's breath caught. The man wasn't rushed. He wasn't confused. He walked toward the same entrance Marissa had used, phone in hand, expression relaxed, almost anticipatory. He disappeared inside. Calloway felt something break. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet finality that scared him more than anger ever could. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. He sat there for nearly an hour, watching people come and go, his mind replaying every Wednesday afternoon, every half-truth, every smile that now felt borrowed. When Marissa finally emerged, she wasn't alone. The man walked beside her. They didn't touch, not openly, but they laughed. And before separating at the valet stand, she leaned in, just slightly, and said something that made him smile in a way Calloway hadn't seen directed at her in years. Calloway drove home before she did. He sat in the dark living room, lights off, heart pounding, knowing one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, and patterns could be proven. Calloway learned very quickly that suspicion was loud, but certainty was quiet. After that Wednesday, he didn't confront Marissa. He didn't change his behavior. He didn't ask new questions or set traps the way people did in movies. He did something far more dangerous. He paid attention. The next morning, he kissed her on the cheek like always, told her to have a good day, asked if she wanted chicken or pasta for dinner. His voice didn't shake, and that scared him more than if it had. Marissa noticed nothing. Or maybe she noticed everything and simply didn't care. Calloway started keeping what he thought of as a mental inventory. Small facts, harmless on their own, devastating when placed together. Wednesday therapy sessions lasted exactly 90 minutes. Always. Never longer. Never shorter. She showered immediately after coming home. She no longer left receipts in her purse. Her phone now had notifications turned off entirely. At night, she rolled slightly away from him in bed. Not dramatically. Just enough to create a thin, unmistakable gap. Calloway filled that gap with questions he refused to ask. He told himself he needed proof. Not because he doubted what he'd seen, but because part of him still wanted an exit. Some alternate explanation that would restore the world to its previous shape. The hotel sat like a landmark in his mind. On the second Wednesday, after he followed her, he did it again. This time he parked closer. This time he brought a notebook. He felt absurd writing down timestamps like a private investigator from a low-budget crime show. But once he started, he couldn't stop. 1:42 p.m. Marissa enters hotel 1:57 p.m. Black sedan arrives 2:01 p.m. Man enters same man. He was mid-40s maybe. Athletic build. Salt and pepper hair. Dressed too well for coincidence. Not flashy. Intentional. You don't dress like that unless you're trying to be remembered, Calloway thought. When they exited, Calloway caught more this time. The way Marissa's hand brushed the man's forearm. The way she didn't pull back. The way she smiled with her whole face. He wrote that down too, though it didn't fit neatly into a timeline. That night, Calloway sat in the shower, long after the water went cold. He pressed his forehead against the tile and tried to feel something sharp: anger, grief, betrayal. What he felt instead was numb, and numbness, he was learning, could be functional. He started checking bank statements, not obsessively, carefully. At first, there was nothing. Then he noticed small charges he didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals, always on Wednesdays, always rounded amounts. $120, $80, $200 too clean. He didn't mention it. He started working later on Wednesdays, or at least pretending to. Sitting in his car 2 blocks away, watching the time pass, imagining what she was doing inside that hotel room. That was the worst part. Not the sex, though that thought burned, but the intimacy, the conversations, the laughter he hadn't earned in months. He found himself studying Marissa the way one studies a stranger on a train. Her expressions, her habits, the way she seemed lighter on Wednesdays, almost buoyant, and heavier the rest of the week. Once, she hummed while cooking dinner. Calloway had to step outside. The confirmation came accidentally. Marissa left her laptop open one Sunday afternoon while she ran to the grocery store. Calloway hadn't intended to touch it. He told himself that truth, even as he sat down in front of the screen. A message preview blinked in the corner. Ethan. Next week, same time? Calloway stared at the name. Not saved as anything clever. Not disguised. Just Ethan. He didn't open the message. Didn't scroll. Didn't read more than the preview. He didn't need to. Instead, he closed the laptop. His hands were steady. His heart was not. Ethan. He said the name aloud in the empty room, testing its weight. It didn't sound dangerous. That made it worse. From that moment on, the world shifted. Marissa wasn't his wife when he looked at her anymore. She was someone performing a role, reciting lines she'd memorized while living another life somewhere else. And Calloway was no longer simply observing. He was preparing. He hired a private investigator. Not because he couldn't do the work himself, but because he needed distance, someone objective who could gather facts without bleeding into them. Her name was Dana Whitmore, late 40s, direct, no unnecessary sympathy. "Do you want to know everything?" she asked over coffee. "Or just enough?" Calloway didn't hesitate. "Everything," Dana nodded. "Then don't ask me for updates until I'm done." 2 weeks later, she handed him a folder. Photos, dates, times, hotel room numbers, surveillance of them entering together, leaving together, once holding hands openly in a parking garage. Ethan Hale. Married once, divorced, financial consultant, no criminal record, no social media presence to speak of. A man who knew how to keep a life compartmentalized. Calloway flipped through the folder in silence. "This has been going on at least 6 months, Dana said. "Probably longer." Calloway closed it. 6 months. He thought of the dinners, the anniversaries, the lies delivered in his wife's voice. "Thank you," he said. Dana studied him. "You planning to confront her?" "Yes." "When?" Calloway stood. "Not yet." That night, Marissa curled up beside him on the couch, head on his shoulder, scrolling through her phone. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "You've been distant." He almost laughed. Instead, he kissed the top of her head. "Just tired," he said. She smiled, reassured. Calloway stared straight ahead, already mapping the moment he would finally speak. He wouldn't yell. He wouldn't beg. He would wait until the truth had nowhere left to hide. Calloway chose the timing carefully. Not a Wednesday. Not after therapy. Not in the aftermath of sex or silence or some accidental kindness that might soften the edges. He waited for a Sunday evening, when the house was quiet, and the week hadn't yet begun to press in on them. Marissa was folding laundry on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, television murmuring in the background. She looked comfortable, Safe. That detail almost broke him. "Can we talk?" Calloway said. She glanced up, smiled faintly. "Sure. What's up?" He sat across from her, not beside her. He placed the folder on the coffee table between them. Marissa's eyes dropped to it, then lifted, then narrowed just slightly. "What's that?" she asked. Calloway didn't answer immediately. He studied her face, memorizing it, the curve of familiarity now threaded with tension. He wanted to remember exactly who she was in this moment. "It's about your therapy," he said finally. Her shoulders relaxed a fraction. "What about it?" He opened the folder. He slid the first photo toward her. Marissa looked down and froze. The room seemed to inhale. Calloway didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He didn't need to. "This is the Langham Hotel," he said. "Suite 814. Wednesdays. 1:42 to 3:15. Give or take." Marissa stared at the image, as if it might change. It didn't. "You followed me?" she whispered. Calloway nodded. "Once. Then I verified." She looked up at him, eyes shining. Not with guilt yet, but with calculation. "It's not what you think," she said. Calloway exhaled through his nose. "Marissa. His name is Ethan Hale. He's a financial consultant, divorced. You've been seeing him for at least 6 months." Her mouth opened, closed. The silence stretched thin. "Say it," Calloway said quietly. "Or don't. The truth doesn't actually need your permission anymore." Marissa's hands trembled as she set the photo down. "You went through my things," she said, grasping at something. "Anything." "You invaded my privacy." Calloway's eyes hardened. "You lied to me," he replied. Repeatedly. With structure. With planning. Tears welled in her eyes now. Real ones this time. "I was lonely," she said. "You were always working. Always tired. I felt invisible." Calloway let the words hang. Then he stood. "You felt invisible," he repeated. "So you made me non-existent." She sobbed then, shoulders shaking, face collapsing into her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "It just did." Calloway felt something sharp slice through the numbness. "Nothing just happens for 6 months," he said. "You scheduled it. You funded it. You protected it." She looked up at him, desperate now. "I love you," she said. "I never stopped." He almost believed her. That terrified him. "Love," Calloway said slowly, "doesn't require deception to survive." He turned away, walked to the window, stared out at the dark street. When he spoke again, his voice was steady. "Did you love him?" Silence. That was answer enough. "Yes," she whispered. Calloway closed his eyes. That word, soft, final, ended something inside him more cleanly than anger ever could. He didn't leave that night. Not because he wanted to stay, but because he needed to observe the aftermath. The way she hovered, the apologies, the sudden transparency that came too late. He slept in the guest room. The next morning, he contacted a lawyer. 3 days later, he filed for divorce. Marissa begged, not theatrically, earnestly. She promised therapy, real therapy this time. Promised she'd cut off contact. Promised she'd do anything. Calloway listened, then declined. "I believe you," he said. "I just don't believe in us anymore." The final blow came quietly. Calloway hadn't planned revenge. He wasn't wired for cruelty, but consequences he believed in. During the divorce proceedings, Ethan's name surfaced naturally, documented, unavoidable. The affair became part of the official record. What Marissa didn't know was that Ethan's firm had a strict ethics clause, conflict of interest, reputational risk. A discreet email from Calloway's attorney, purely factual, entirely unemotional, was enough. Ethan was asked to resign 2 weeks later. Marissa found out the same day she received the settlement offer. She called Calloway, voice raw. "You ruined his life," she said. Calloway paused. "No," he replied calmly. "I told the truth. That's all." The divorce finalized in early spring. Calloway moved into a smaller apartment near the lake. New routines. New silence. Some nights, the weight returned. Grief has a way of sneaking back in, uninvited. But there was also relief. No more guessing. No more performing. No more sharing space with a lie. He walked along the water one evening, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold air, and realized something unexpected. He didn't miss her. He missed the man he used to be before he started doubting his own reality. And that man, slowly, quietly, was coming back. Calloway thought the end would feel louder. He expected rage, or grief, that knocked the wind from his lungs, or at least some dramatic sense of finality. Papers signed, doors slammed, a life clearly divided into before and after. Instead, it arrived the way most real endings did. Silently. The divorce decree came in the mail on a Tuesday. No ceremony, no explanation. Just a thin envelope that weighed less than everything it represented. He opened it at the kitchen counter of his new apartment, skimmed the language he'd already read a dozen times, and placed it in a drawer. That was it. 11 years condensed into legal phrasing. Marissa moved out of state 2 months later. Colorado, he heard. A mutual acquaintance mentioned it casually over coffee, as if announcing a job change. Calloway didn't ask follow-up questions. He didn't need to know whether Ethan had followed her, or if their relationship had survived exposure. Affairs rarely did. They thrived in secrecy, in stolen time, in fantasy. Reality was less forgiving. What surprised Calloway most wasn't the absence of Marissa. It was the absence of vigilance. For months after the confrontation, he'd lived alert, listening for deception, scanning conversations for hidden meanings. His mind had become a security system that never powered down. And then one day, walking home from work, he realized he hadn't thought about her in hours. The relief nearly brought him to his knees. He started rebuilding in small, deliberate ways. Morning swims at the lake, cooking meals that didn't account for someone else's preferences, leaving lights on or off without negotiation. He bought a plant, then another. He stopped checking his phone reflexively. Some nights were harder than others. Loneliness crept in with memory, not desire. He missed the idea of partnership, the shared language of a long marriage, the shorthand only time created. But he no longer missed her, and that distinction mattered. One evening in early summer, Calloway ran into Dana Whitmore at a bar near the courthouse. She recognized him first. "You look different," she said, raising her glass. "Lighter," he replied. She smiled. "That happens when the truth stops pressing down." They talked briefly, nothing deep. She asked if he regretted knowing everything. Calloway shook his head. "I regret believing in a version of someone that didn't exist," he said. "Not the truth," Dana nodded. "Most people never get that clarity." Calloway paid for his drink and left before nostalgia could take hold. The final moment came unexpectedly. A message request appeared on his phone one evening, an unfamiliar number. "Marissa, I heard about Ethan. I didn't know what you did would affect his job. I hope you're happy." Calloway stared at the screen for a long time. He felt nothing sharp, no urge to defend himself. No satisfaction either. Just distance. He typed slowly. "Calloway. I didn't do anything to him. I stopped protecting a lie. There's a difference." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply came. Calloway blocked the number and set the phone down. That, he realized, was closure. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Release. In late August, Calloway stood on his balcony watching the city settle into evening. The lake reflected the sky in muted shades of blue and gray. He thought about the man he had been, the husband who trusted instinct over evidence, who believed love was enough to anchor truth. He didn't resent that man. He honored him. Because despite everything, that man had chosen integrity over denial, action over comfort. And when the lie revealed itself, he hadn't become cruel. He'd become honest. Months later, someone new entered his life. Not dramatically, not all at once. A woman named Elena, whom he met at a bookstore. Conversation over shared interests, coffee without expectation, time allowed to unfold naturally. He told her about his divorce early, not the details, not the betrayal, just the truth. It ended because it needed to. That was enough. Some people never learn that betrayal isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, disguised as routine, wrapped in reasonable explanations. And some people, like Callaway Reed, don't catch it immediately. But when they do, they don't explode. They endure. They observe. They choose themselves. And in the end, that choice costs the liar everything they thought they were getting away with.